In this video, I'm going to be teaching how to cut and sew this high waist shorts. If you are interested in it, kindly watch till the end. So I'm going to be needing these measurements: the waist divided by 4, hip divided by 4, and then the length of the shorts, how long you want the shorts to be. So from the upper part, I'm going to be dividing my hip by 4. Whatever I get, I'm going to be marking it down to get the crouch line. So I had about 10.5. I'm going to be taking 0.5 from it. Note 10.5, I took 0.5 from it, so I'm marking 10 inches down to get the crouch length. So after that, I'm going to be measuring my length. I'm using 15 inches. So from the waistline, I'm going to be marking 15 inches down and then connect with my ruler as well. So after connecting, I'll be labeling my waist, hip line, and then the length of my shorts. So that is the waistline, that's the crouch line, same as the hip line, and then my length. So on the crouch line, I'm going to be dividing my hip by 4. Whatever I get, I'm going to be marking it there. Note at this point, you are not going to deduct any 0.5 from it. If your hip is 40 and you have 10, you are marking 10. You are not deducting anything from it. So I'm marking that 10.5 on the waist and then the hip line, then connect with my ruler. After connecting, I'm going to be marking 2 inches out on the hip or crouch line and then 2 inches up. After marking, all I have to do is to connect together with a curve. Connect the 2 points together with a curve, just like this. Now on the waistline, I'm going to be deducting 1 inch from it and then connect it to that 2 inches point. Note this part is optional, but I always use this method to work. You can decide to keep that straight line. So I'm going to be inserting my waist measurements at this point. So whatever your waist is, divide it by 4 and then insert it at the waistline. So like I said, that part is optional. You can decide to start measuring the waist from that point if you don't want the slant at the front, but then I am maintaining the slant, so I'll be cutting it straight at that edge since there is no excess fabric left. So like I said, that point or that part is optional, so whatever works for you, you go by it. So now I'm going to be measuring the length from that point to the end, and I have 12.5. I'll be repeating that same 12.5 at the hem of the pants. After that, I'm going to be connecting those 2 points together just like this. And then if you want to add seam allowance for folding, you can add it at this point. I added 1 inch seam allowance to the hem, but then I later on reduced it or took it out because I didn't want it to be that long. So however long you want it to be, you go ahead and then add. But I advise you to always add about 2 inches for folding at the hem. At this point, I'm done with the front and then I'm cutting it out. From here, I'll be working on the back. So like I said, I didn't need that 1 inch I added, so I'm taking it off at this point, and then I'll be taking off that excess at the waist. So that excess at the waist is not needed, like I said. But then if you are adding a dart to it, I advise you to maintain it. But then if you are not adding a dart, you can just take it out. So this is it for the front. At this point, I'm going to be cutting that side because the fabric is on fold. and then lay it on another fabric to cut out the back. So I just laid another fabric down on fold, and I'm going to place the front on it just like this. So after folding it, I'm going to be dividing that line into two, minus the 2 inches at the end for the curve. So that 10.5 I had, I'm going to be dividing it into two, and I had 5.25. So from that 5.25, or that center line, I'm going to be marking that same 10.25 out. So mark that same 10.25 out to get the back. So after that, I'm going to be extending that line out. Then I'll be adding 3 inches to the hem, and then 3 inches to the waist, and then at the center point, at this point, I'm going to be adding 3 inches as well. So after marking my 3 inches, I'm going to be joining those points together. So just like this, I'm going to be joining those points together to get the back. At this point, I'm going to be working on the waistline of the back. So I'm marking a straight line to connect the front and then the back waist together. And then at the back waist, I'm going to be going up by 1 inch. From that 1 inch, I'm going to be connecting to the side of the trouser. So remember, I took ½ inch from the front, so there's no need to deduct anything from the front. I've already done that. So like I said, I'm going to be connecting the lines or points together, and then that will be it for the back. So note, with this pants, I'm not going to be adding that to it. So I just indicated my front and then back. And at this point, I'm going to be joining that part of the front. And then with the back, I'm going to be joining that part, but to somewhere midpoint or lower than the midpoint. So you can measure about 3 inches or 4 inches up, and then just stitch just to hold it together so that we can join the sides. So after stitching both front and then back, this is what I have. So after that, I'm going to be opening both fronts and then back together, and then join the sides together. These papers are very weak on the fabric, so I'll take them off after sewing. So like I said, I'm going to be joining the sides together at this point. So after joining the sides, this is what I have, and at this point I'm going to be joining that lower part together. So make sure the seam lines are meeting, and then stitch that part as well. After stitching, this is what I have. Yes, this is what I have. So it's now time to work on the waist zip and then the hem of the pants. So I'll be cutting out a fabric of width 5 inches, and then the length should be more than the waist, so that after sewing it on, you can trim the excess. So you can add about 5 inches to the waist. So I folded ½ inch in on both sides, and then this is what I have. So I'm going to be looking for the midpoint of the band and then join it to the center front of the waist. So open up the seams, the ½ inch folded in, you're going to open it up like this and then pin it together. After pinning it together, I'm going to be stitching it all round. So like I said, I'm going to be pinning every part together with the waist and then stitch. After stitching, this is what I have, and I'm going to be folding it on top of it, just like this. So when you fold it on, make sure it is slightly above the seam line at the waist. It shouldn't be on the seam line. Let it be slightly above it. Pin it together. So at this point, I realized I was supposed to use 29 inches for the waist, but then I used 34, but then I went ahead to trim off the excess from it. So like I said, I went ahead to trim off the excess from the waist, but it's the same method you are going to use and you get the same perfect fit. So at this point, you are going to look for the midpoint of the center of the front part of the pants, and then pin the middle part, and then insert your waist measurement. So since it is folded into two, you are going to be dividing your waist into two. Whatever you get, you are going to mark it from the center front. From the center front. So from the center front, I went ahead to mark my waist measurements, and then I'm going to be folding the excess in. So I'm going to be folding the excess in like this, press it down, and then insert my zip. After that, I'm going to be folding this part or the lower part in about 1 inch in or 2 inches in, depending on the seam allowance you added. So this is the end result. Thanks for watching. Bye.